Hi everyone, welcome to PR2 Week 3 Catch Up. And just want to share the window quickly. All right, so on your screen, you're going to be looking at the roadmap for Week 3. Literally in Week 2, what we covered just as a catch up is some of the traits and attributes that a public relations practitioner would need to have. We spoke about things like lobbying, media relations. We delved quite a bit into crisis and issues management and all of those kind of topics. And one of the very important things that we also covered in Week 2 was the FA1 assessment. And as mentioned in the recording, is if you go to under modules on Cole Campus, and you will see there's a FA1, right? The assessment, and you will see there's a recorded session which has been done quite comprehensively by Claire, the lecturer in Santon. And please make use of that to have detailed instructions. I didn't want to do a duplication of it. I basically have taken you through the assessment, and if you can refer to that. So for this week, what are we looking at? We're looking at public relations and marketing. That is on relates to chapter 5. So as communicators, marketers, and public relations practitioners, we have a lot of things in common. Both deal with organizational relationships and employ similar processes, techniques, and strategies. But it is imperative to note that the two functions are separated by the mission or goal. Public relation is about relationships and perceptions, while marketing focuses on meeting the needs of the customer in order to increase company sales. When these disciplines work together in an integrated approach way, it can lead to a favorable perception of the company, which will in turn lead to sales and also lead to growth and profitability of the company. Some of the learning outcomes is to be informed of the role of public relations with regards to marketing, identify the key facets of marketing, be aware of the different relationships between public relations and marketing, understand branding and its role in developing a positive corporate reputation, know practical ways in which public relations can assist the marketing effort, be aware of the integrated marketing communication and integrated communication. Kindly note there's two different terms there that we've indicated. One is integrated marketing communication and one is integrated communication. You need to be aware of the impact of the internet on public relations and marketing practices. So public relations 2, in terms of lesson 7, we're going to cover in the slides. You will see that like all other roadmaps, there are generally additional resources that are included that you need to access in your own time to get an understanding of some of the more broader information that's not covered in the theory, such as the trends for 2023 in terms of marketing, social media trends for 2023. And also what we want to just ask you to keep in mind is, are you keeping the world around you, or are you watching the world around you? Are you keeping yourself updated on what's happening in the news? Are you following local brands and their current marketing campaigns? Do you visit Biz Community daily? If not, please start doing this. These are some of the integral things that we as public relations practitioners need to do, is that we need to be well versed of what is happening in the public domain. Then in terms of lesson 8, it's public relations and advertising. That is chapter 6 of the PR textbook. The fields of public relations and advertising must be viewed as different disciplines, but having the ability to complement each other, these disciplines are often confused in the mind of the consumer. So consumers find it confusing at times and therefore are not able to differentiate between the two. Public relations is about creating a mutual understanding and mutually beneficial relationships with all stakeholders. Advertising concentrates on the consumer and is aimed at making the consumer aware of its products and services and persuading them to buy these products and services. So the advertising aspect is more along the lines of persuading customers, right? Advertising is an element of the marketing mix, and it works well with other disciplines like marketing and public relations when creating integrated campaigns. The lesson outcomes is to gain a basic understanding for good advertising, understand the structure, departments, and functions of an advertising agency, be familiar with a simple, practical checklist for judging the qualities of any advertisement, be aware of how the creative strategy is developed, understand the media buying process. Then, in terms of lesson 8, there are a number of articles and links that we've included for you to watch. In terms of lesson 9, public relations and selling. So when public relations works together with marketing and sales, it can be a major aid to the sales activity, meaning that sales will increase through those activities. The integrated approach that includes all discipline is one that achieves the best results. It often happens that public relations is brought in when other disciplines are not successful. However, when included from the start, we can see the value public relations adds. The public relations practitioner has an in-depth understanding of the organization and how it must be portrayed to the public. With this knowledge, the public relations practitioner is able to provide insight and add value to any sales pitch. Learning outcomes is to understand how public relations can assist the sales effort, to understand how public relations, marketing, and sales interact, to be aware of how public relations can contribute to better sales, to better consumer relations. Okay, and then in terms of lesson 9, we will go through the slides, and then very important for you to have a look at is the 2023 Global Consumer Trends, right? Then the Consumer Protection Act. There is a link. Please go through and have a look at what the Consumer Protection Act actually talks about. And then we've included a dummy's guide to the Consumer Protection Act. So this is a very simple document to understand in terms of what the Consumer Protection Act is all about. And it's not on a high level, it's broken down and it's easier to be able to consume and understand. So what we're going to do is we're going to move into the lesson. I'm going to switch screens and then we're going to go through to okay. So what we really need to do is I am not going into extensive details in a lot of the slides. What the expectation is that with regards to those who have registered late, is the understanding is that you need to go back and ensure that you are able to catch up on the material if you've registered late. What we're doing now in terms of the recording of the catch-up lectures is just something we're doing out of courtesy. Just remember, this is not compulsory. It's just purely from a courtesy point of view and based on the demand or request that came through for this. So public relations, lesson 7, right? Public relations 2. We are going to be dealing with chapter 5, which is public relations and marketing. So if you have to go through to chapter 5, okay, you're going to find that it deals with public relations and marketing, and that's on page 44. The learning objectives, we've gone through that in the roadmap. So we're going to get into this. So a fundamental aspect to the nature of public relations and marketing practice is their relationship and shared objectives, right? As communicators, marketers, and public relations have a lot in common, right? Both deal with organizational relationships that employ similar processes and techniques and strategies in order to achieve their goals and objectives. However, the two functions have to be separated by a mission or goal. So although they have a link or their approaches may be similar, they are separated by a mission or a goal. Public relations has the goal of attaining and maintaining accord within social groups on whom the organization depends in order to achieve its mission. That means its engagement with key stakeholders or stakeholder groups, right, that have an impact on the organization itself, especially if you look at employees and public relations that is used to motivate and inspire employees in an organization. Marketing, on the other hand, has the goal of attracting and satisfying customers on a sustained basis in order to achieve an organization's economic objectives. Now, when we talk about economic objectives, what are we talking about? The financial implication. So that it would mean increasing sales, for example, might be a goal and objective of the organization. Every organization, therefore, needs both a marketing and public relations function. They are equally essential to organizational survival and success. Now, there are different facets of marketing, right? And what we're going to do is, before we delve into each one of them, is we're going to look at, so the six prime facets of marketing, right, is research, merchandising, advertising, sales promotion, selling, and public relations. So we are going to go into each of these, but as I said, I'm not going to go into extensive detail, although this is a catch-up lesson for those who registered late. What you need to do is you need to actually go and read the textbook and do additional research to further your understanding or to gauge a full understanding of what is required in the theory. So public relations in the marketing mix. Public relations is a management function and not merely a tool. Remember what I said, management, public relation has a seat in many organizations around the boardroom table. So it's not just a tool that companies use, right? In today's complex society and the level of skills and creativity required, elevated above that. Now, I spoke to you about like written, excellent verbal and written or writing skills, right? There are certain skills that are required that a public relations practitioner will have, right? If you look at crisis communication or crisis issues or risk management, these are skills that public relations practitioners would be able to position themselves, and that is how it can be translated into a management function. The public relations person should also answer directly to the top person in the organization and enjoy a lateral working relationship with other managers who are in, for example, marketing, HR, finance, production. Now, what I mentioned is very important, is the whole aspect of networking and integrating yourself into an organization where you are engaging with people like the CEO, directors of the company, executives of the company, directors, managing directors of the company, in each and every different division of the company, that they should be able to, when they hear your name, is that they know who you are. So it's about becoming visible in the organization. Bear in mind that you should also look at your role and in terms of the access you have to people in the organization. Generally, when you move into a much senior role or middle management role, you then get to start to work with leaders across the organization, and you are able to then build relationships. When involved in purely marketing projects, An individual must become part of the team headed by the marketing executive. Remember, I spoke of cross-functional teams. So when the marketing team are working on different projects, you will be part of this team, and generally the marketing executive then oversees that entire project. The public relations person must be able to voice opinions. Remember, we've got to act as advisors and make recommendations as colleagues on the team and as an equal partner. So when you sit around the table with your marketing colleagues, you, from a public relations perspective, must be able to bring your opinions and ideas to the table, being an equal partner across the table that you're sitting, or around the table that you're sitting, rather. Four major variables in the marketing mix are price, product, promotion, and place. I just want to check on the next slide. Okay, that's not. So price is the price of the product. The product is the actual product being sold. The promotion is what activities that are being executed, and the place would be whereabout is this done in retail stores, etc., etc. The role of public relations. So marketing and public relations are the major exterior functions of a company. Both functions start their analysis and planning from the point of view of satisfying one or more stakeholders already identified. Now, at this point, when you are integrated into the organization, you have already established who the organization's stakeholders are, right? And the marketing team already has established who their stakeholders are. For maximum effort, it is essential that public relations be involved right from the start of any campaign. It's no point that when a campaign is nearing the end, that you become involved in it. You are integral, and as part of that cross-functional team, need to be part of the marketing campaign right up front, because in cases where you see red flags, and red flags meaning possible issues or risks that you can raise, and it can then avoid or prevent certain situations from occurring. Okay, so if you give your input. So input from the PR person is valuable at all stages, whether it be from an advisory nature regarding public attitudes or giving expert recommendations and actions relating to publicity backup, such as literature, production techniques, audiovisual possibilities, or related skills which professional public relations people should possess. One of my previous roles when I was in public relations, excuse me, was when a marketing or a brand manager was in the process of working on a television commercial. I would be involved in it because what had happened is there was one of the TV commercials that they had actually put together, which cost roughly about R500,000, that was flighted on air. I had not seen it or had no knowledge of it. And there were some social issues that were negatively portrayed in this specific advertisement. And then I got called in when it became a crisis, when it was too late. So my recommendation to the team when we met, when this crisis occurred, was that this television advert needs to be completely taken off immediately from broadcasting, from the schedule. They need to do it with immediate effect. And it was a loss of R500,000 that went down the drain because they did not have the foresight to realize the complexities and social issues that are at the forefront in South Africa, especially in South Africa. So market attitude and product publicity. Now, this is one of the most noticeable areas where public relations can make a worthwhile and tangible contribution to the overall marketing effort, is by using planned professional public relations activity as part of an integrated approach. So when we say integrated approach, it means that there are several approaches or activities that are going to be merged together, right, and executed either simultaneously or over a period of time in order to have an integrated effort. In some cases, it may be wise to build up publicity to the launch with advertising, then combine the PR in a coordinated exercise to make the necessary impact and thereafter maintain the momentum. So if it's a launch of a specific product or service, and the publicity to the launch takes place through advertising, public relations can actually, from the angle of putting in a press release in specific media channels, right? At the same time, where it's a coordinated exercise to make the necessary impact. To ensure that while advertising is implementing their activities at the same time, public relations is getting the media release sent out to specific media after pitching those specific editorial angles. Sometimes public relation is used to soften up or prepare the market to give advertising a head start. So it could be on the flip side where a media release or article or an advert of some sort linked to public relations that is published in one of the media platforms, right? Which could then give advertising a head start. So a press release that goes out to say, this is what's going to be launched and this is why it's being launched, just some information about it, and then it is launched through advertising, which then follows through. Consumerism is growing power everywhere, and it now plays a key role in the overall marketing strategy. So market research is used, right, to help assess consumer attitudes, but this is really only part of the problem. Public relations, by creating two-way communication with the consumer, is often a far more effective aid in assisting marketing to appreciate and recognize consumer needs. Now, remember, right, consumers are very vocal. They are, if they're not happy with the service, they will publish this information on social media, or they will go to a platform like Hello Peter. If you don't know what Hello Peter is, please go and research it and have a look. It's a channel where consumers can go and complain about specific products or services by certain organizations. Now, market research, what they aim to do through this kinds of research is to gauge what is the consumer's attitude towards a specific product or service. Now, public relations can, through a social media campaign, right, on a Facebook or on a website, do a poll, right? And they can then assist marketing with gathering very important intel in order to assess what the consumer's thinking is or attitude is towards a product or service. Marketing communication. So this is an area causing increasing concern to marketing people who more than anyone else are conscious of the annual escalation in advertising costs. So remember, like everything else in life, advertising costs also go up every year. This is certainly the case as far as traditional media is concerned, but organizations are now prepared to experiment with new media. New media in the sense that working with public relations, right, can supplement by getting the message across at a very low cost or no cost, right, in a credible way. So a press release does not cost anything. It's in that video that you watched in the second catch-up lesson or the catch-up week, was where the guy says that a public relations person in an organization is paid a salary. However, the company is not paying for the media release to go into a media publication, right? So when something is published in the media, right, and it's backed up and the facts are correct, the media will publish it and it becomes credible. Extending the spread of communications program is another useful area for contribution by public relations. So in terms of the public relations program is to extend it to include many channels that can be used that are not going to cost you money. For example, social media or the press release, and also getting editorial information published. But there again, and it goes back to the point of pitching editorial angles to whether it's a journalist, whether you're doing a profile of a specific product or whatever the case may be. Remember, you've got to pitch an angle, right? Now, because public relations works with the complete and widely varied news and general media, it is not concerned with the spectra of waste circulation that haunts the advertising person. So remember, when you are paying for an advertising space, right, there's no guarantee that although that circulation has a readership or listenership of X amount of people, that may not be the case for that specific advert or radio commercial or whatever the case may be. There's no, with public relations, there's no concern about the costs being wasted and it not reaching the target audience. Packaging, presentation, and product utility. So in marketing, you will find packaged goods, right? And the advertising is the main communications tool. So you will see in a commercial ad or radio ad, you will see they put a product or service, but what they do is they put the human element to it, where they have people in it and they have voices when it speaks to the radio. The claims of the product on TV, radio, and in the press continually remind the consumer of benefits implicit in the package. So through the various platforms, right, whether it's through the advertising or public relations, right, the benefits aspect is emphasized and re-emphasized through various platforms. Sales promotion is the purest sense, and it's really not a PR concern. So sales promotion is where you have in-store activations and promotions, which is purely sales driven, right? So you will have sales representatives who go in-store, negotiate with the store, they pay a certain amount to have a sales promotion on or a display in store. Public relations professional ask to help out because often work of this nature involves dealing with the media. So on that day, if there's going to be a sales promotion and there are going to be media present, right? That is where we come in, where we need to engage with the media, provide them with the press release and so forth, and interact with the media. Also, the role of the public relations practitioner is to make suggestions on the acceptability of the naming, color, and design. Now, if you look at, that is why it says that we need to actually be creative, because when a product or packaging is being developed, the things that's got to be looked at is the usability, the ease of holding it. So if you are, for example, a company is manufacturing a yogi sip, right? That's targeted specifically for 5 years, children who are 5 years of age. Now, is it going to be something that's going to be a size of a massive cup? You know, the size of a massive cup. Remember, children have smaller hands. So how are they going to hold on to that massive, if I can call it, container, right? If it's large, too large. So the idea behind the thinking, maybe behind the team, was that It's value for money if you have more, right? But on the other hand, is it doesn't really fit into a lunchbox and it's not easy to hold. Then you get to customer education. Customer education by way of a public relations program can do more than encourage use it. It can also increase it. The role of education is important so that the consumer is well aware if if there are dangers to the use of the product. If you don't mind, I'm just having my cup of coffee. It is absolutely cold, so it's like it's winter's on our doorstep. So, but I'm almost done with it in any case. There we go. Excuse me. So when you look at even the insert information on a specific product. So if you go and buy a box of Panado, what you will find is when you open this box, there will be a leaflet, right, with a whole range of information that children of this age it's not suitable for them, or you get Panado, so Panado expanded and they made a Panado syrup for children, and they indicate what are the if there are dangers of you taking the whole box of Panado, for example, and what could happen, because if you feel your headache or whatever is not going away, you take another two, and it still feels like it doesn't work, you take another two, and the dangers and things need to be fully explained. So that is where also I was also very involved in the pharmaceutical space as a public relations practitioner in terms of the insert packaging to ensure that all of the relevant information I worked with the team to make sure that it was put and worded well. The non-advertised position. So there are some areas where public relations can at least initially carry the entire marketing load and where it makes good strategic sense for it to do so. This is particularly true in the case of new products where the budget is limited and advertising on any scale will have to wait for the initial acceptance of a product or service following a test market. So what this essentially is saying is that generally when a product is launched, right, public relations tends to carry the load in terms of creating the awareness and education about the product or service. And there is not a very big budget, secondly, right, to advertise, to put up a billboard, whatever the case may be, or to wait to see whether this product is doing well in the market in terms of the sales figures, etc. So marketing and advertising would then be reliant on public relations, and that's why it says we have to carry the load in terms of making strategic sense. So we would do media releases. We would then go and pitch editorial angles to specific editors. We would go and negotiate with probably a radio station to have a segment, an interview on with a specific person, etc. There's a whole lot that we would do in terms of getting this off the ground. Now, relationship between dealers and distributors. The relationship between dealers and distributors can frequently be enhanced by the use of PR. In many organizations, this is recognized as an important public relations function. Dealers, journals, visits, right? Promotions, general cooperation, and publicity are all methods of motivating and achieving a happy commercial association and two-way communications. So what would happen is as a function of public relations is to build a relationship between dealers, right? Distributors, like for example, in-store, if you're looking at a company that is distributing a product on behalf of another company. And also it is about two-way communication where you are engaging with these the stakeholders, right, and getting feedback as well. Consumer complaints. Now, in any product or service, there is a consumer complaints telephone line or email that you can reach out to. Now, consumer complaints represents one of the reactive as opposed to innovative aspects of public relations community. Unfortunately, there comes a time for virtually every company when something goes wrong and a complaint is made. The ideal situation is for management to handle the issue and sort it out amicably before the issue it builds up, right? And then it is found in social media platforms, right? But if this does not happen, the public relations person is the best person to intervene through media liaison and to put forward positive factors to improve the position. Now, what is going to happen is that with every company, so even if you look at social media platforms, right? Now, what used to happen in my role previously, excuse me, is that we had a consumer complaints line that people could call in, people could email complaints to, and then for every single one of the brands, there was Facebook and other social media platforms. So whenever a complaint came through the consumer complaints line or email, what would happen is I would be contacted to assist with a properly crafted response that deals exactly with the complaint and to take it from there. So you might have a consumer writing in to say, they have been trying to get stock of this specific product for months now, and actually they are just so frustrated that they cannot, get they cannot find this product. And they would want to know, when is it going to be available on the market? The one thing you need to be is, when you are dealing with consumer complaints, whether it's on Facebook, on Twitter, or even if it's on your consumer complaints email, you need to also be empathetic. These consumers have reached out because they are not happy about something. So firstly, you want to thank them for reaching out, right, in terms of the specific issue. You apologize for any inconvenience that's been caused through this process, right? And then you go on to say that you are going to liaise with the brand manager of this product and give them feedback as to when this product is going to be available in stock in the market again. And these are the direct contact details for you. And remember, what you want to do is you want to short circuit this situation before it explodes and becomes a crisis or an issue or a risk that is then becomes a full-blown media situation, a crisis that is even more then difficult to handle. So you rather just short circuit that process and deal with it in a very diplomatic way. Integrated marketing communication. So the practice of integrated marketing communication is now one of the most valuable tools that companies can use to gain a competitive advantage, right? There's a lot of companies, and what they strive to do is to gain a competitive advantage over their competitors, meaning that they have an advantage that's unique to their organization over their competitors. Advertising, sales promotion, direct marketing, and public relations practitioners are finding common ground to meet the future challenges of selling to individual customers rather than markets. So when you look at a TV commercial and it speaks to a mum taking care of her children, and where they get dirty, they go and play in the sand and their clothes get dirty. The mum calls the kids in and you look at these stains on your clothes, but then the mom uses a specific brand of washing powder and stains are gone. So it is reaching out and humanizing the selling to individual customers rather than markets. So you are going to be speaking to moms, to aunts, to grandmothers, even dads. You know, now in this day and age, the dynamics of a household have definitely changed, where dads also get involved, or men also get involved in chores, household chores in some households. I'm not saying every household, but the reason for this is we have, in many instances, you have two individuals in a household where the male and female are both working, they have careers, some of them are also studying. So then the household chores are split, right? So marketers today face a parity marketplace in which only true differentiating features are either logistics or communications. So, in terms of the positioning of the product, or how well is the communication regarding the product promoted out in the public domain, is the differentiating factor. If you walk into a store, and I'm not sure if it was on this in PR2 or PR3, if you look at a shelf when you're walking into a supermarket, you will have, if you look at mayonnaise, there's so many different brands of mayonnaise, right? Or tomato sauce. However, there is specific shelves that you will have a specific brand on. So for example, the easier a product is able to be reached on a shelf, the more likely a customer is also able to choose that product, right? And especially if they like that product. So it's also the one that is eye level, or is just above eye level, is easiest to access, as compared when you compare it to the product that's right at the bottom on the last aisle, right? Which is, it takes effort to bend and fetch the thing and put it in your trolley. So the logistics and the communication around it is very important. Remember, in-store communication, where you have these big flash banners, you know, on a specific product, which is visible and consumers can see it. Emphasis is on developing good relationships between the marketer and the client, and less on the transaction itself. So remember, building relationships between the marketer and the client is more valuable than the transaction itself, than the consumers actually choosing to purchase it. Because if the relationship between the marketer and the client is strong, then the marketer is going to actually do everything in their power to ensure that the client's product is promoted to the best of its ability in store, or whichever place that the product is sold, right? So a successful integrated marketing communication model requires building a database of information on both customers and prospective customers, formulating a contact management policy, developing a communication strategy, setting market objectives, selecting the various techniques to establish the marketing and communication objectives. Now, you can read up more on these different aspects in your textbook, right? I'm not going to unpack it any further than that. And then mobile marketing, right? So the second major trend that is mobile marketing. It's global communication medium of using a mobile phone. Mobiles have become tools of education, entrepreneurship, trade, empowerment, activism, media, upliftment. You can even run your own business through your, if you've got a really smartphone, you know, you can run a business through there, your emails, your social media platforms, etc., etc. According to Interweb's marketing e-traffic site, a number of big business companies are starting to recognize the advantages that this marketing medium can provide, such as intermediacy and immense cost savings. So mobile marketing is targeted as one of the cheaper forms of marketing tools that can be used, and you can do mass marketing of through a mobile marketing through mobiles. Okay, so that is the end of lesson 7, right? What we're going to do now is we are going to move on to the next one. Guys, as I said, I'm not going in absolute detail through the slides. The reason for this is you need to read your textbook. You need to do additional research. This is just a quick recap in terms of what you may have missed, right? So we're going to talk about now public relations and advertising, right? So we've gone through the learning objectives or the lesson objectives in the roadmap, right? So South Africa has a vibrant and dynamic advertising industry, and many local advertising agencies are recognized internationally for their excellence. So the reason why we say use platforms like Biz Community to find out what is happening in the industry is because many advertising industries publish their campaigns that they're doing, and excellent campaigns that actually get awards for them, right? Public relations and advertising are often confused in the public's mind. Yes, because they may not know the difference between the two, but they are essentially two different disciplines. However, they are linked in some way or form. Public relations establishes mutual understanding and good relationships with all of the stakeholders of the organization and is aimed at the long-term involvement and support. Advertising in its broadest sense concentrate on one of the organization's stakeholders, and that is its customers or consumers, and is aimed at making them aware of its products and services, and then to persuade them to buy these products and services through advertising platforms or channels or tools that they are using. Now, advertising creates awareness through buying media space in a newspaper or TV or on the internet or on the radio to communicate a brand or organizational message. So in order to put this advert about a specific product in a newspaper or a magazine, a full-page advert, for example, the advertising department will have to actually do media buying, which means they would have to buy space, right, for that specific advert to go into that area or that specific placement in the magazine or newspaper. To be effective, good advertising has to meet certain basic requirements. It has to be developed according to clear objectives with a precise strategy statement, right? So in order for good advertising to meet certain basic requirements, it must be developed and in line with the objectives and with a precise strategy statement. Advertising, remember when we broke it down earlier, advertising is one element in the marketing mix and on its own cannot achieve the final objective of the marketing campaign itself, which means essentially the profitability or the increase in sales of the actual product. Now, let's look at the public relations agency. Now, you may, after you finish your public relations 3, which would be next year, 2024, you may want to go an internship in an agency. An agency is broken down into various departments. You will normally have like a senior account director, account management. You'll have a creative department. You have a media department, production department, and you have other specialist departments, like for example, event planning, right, etc. Now, this is just an example, but there are different ways other agencies may have their structure. But you will also have your managing director, perhaps, and you would have a senior account director, you would have an account director, you would have your graduates or interns. It differs from agency to agency. My suggestion is, if you want to get a bit of understanding, go through and have a look at some of the agencies, right? Biz community, go there to find out names of agencies, Google names of public relations agencies, and go to the About Us section where it gives you the structure of the company, or it normally says our team, right? So, how to judge a good advertisement? The most valuable commodity and advertising agency can offer is its client is a good idea. Only a good idea can bring riches by drawing attention to the product itself and the advantages of it. Now, if you look at AB InBev and you look at Coca-Cola, so Coca-Cola is manufactured by, or falls within AB InBev, right? If you look at Coca-Cola, apart from the product itself, if you look at their campaigns and their marketing and their advertising and their public relations, it draws, right? It draws people. So when you look at a Coca-Cola advert, it's fun, right? It brings in the sense of togetherness where you have friends or family connecting and laughing and being together. It's summer, it's normally summer weather. It invokes specific emotions within the viewer or the listener if it's a radio advert. A good idea is relevant to the product it promotes and meaningful to the consumer it addresses, right? Combining these two qualities is the essence of sound advertising practice. So apart from it being a good product, how do you promote it to the consumer and convince them that it is a good product? Through advertising, which invokes emotions of the person who's watching the television advert or who's listening to it on the radio. Principles of good branding advertising. So these are some of the principles that speak to the characteristics of good brand advertising, right? It has to be consumer orientated. That means it needs to be directed at the consumer or consumer focused. It concentrates on one selling idea. So it doesn't have multiple ideas in it. It has one. It concentrates on the most important and persuasive idea available. It presents a unique and competitive idea. It involves the consumer. It is credible and sincere. It is simple, clear, and complete. And it clearly associates the selling idea with the brand name. So you'll always see when a TV advert, when you look at a television advert, and at the end, you will either see the company logo or the logo of the product, or it may be at the beginning, but it will be visible in some area of the advert. It takes full advantage of the medium. So if you've got prime time, you want to make, and you've got 3 minutes for an advert, a television advert, you've paid a hell of a lot of money. You're going to make an advert, you're going to create an advert that maximizes the use of that time, but it is impactful in terms of the people that are viewing it. And it makes a sale. Then someone even wakes up and takes a drive to the garage, and they will purchase a 2-liter bottle of Coca-Cola and bring it home, right? And they will have that with their dinner. Brand awareness. So every year, Brand Finance produces global brand statistics. Now, another tip back to being well informed and a well-rounded professional, public relations professional, go and follow these kind of organizations like Brand Finance. So every year, what they do is they produce global brand statistics, which provides an opinion on the point in time value of the strongest and most valuable brands in the world, right? So now table 6.1, right? This is on chapter 6 that we are on now. If you look on table 6.1, let's get there. Just need to double check that it is the correct page that I am looking at, or the correct table. So it's actually on page 60, right, through to page 61, right? What it does, it gives you, for example, in 2015, the table of Grand Prix overall favorite brands. Coca-Cola was just a few percentage short below Cool, right? So go and read up on page 60 and 61 on Top Brands Awards. It's the blocks that are in gray, and you'll find that it's very informative. Now, let's look at advertising bodies. Now, the advertising industry is served by various bodies, which means that if you're doing advertising, you need to ensure that you adhere to the rules and regulations of these bodies in the industry. So the Association of Advertising Agencies, AAA, the Advertising Standards Authority, ASA, and the South African Advertising Research Foundation, SAF. And you can also look at like your South African Broadcasting Corporation, right? The Broadcasting Association of South Africa, I think it's that one, if I'm not mistaken, that looks at also TV and film and things like that. So the ASA is an independent body established and funded by the marketing communication industry to regulate advertising in the public interest by means of self-regulation. So that advert that I mentioned to you earlier that was cost about R500,000, right? We got into hot water with the Advertising Standards Authority because it was linked to some social issues within the country that the team failed to actually take, or the agency for that matter as well. So the agency and the marketing team missed that completely. And that is when I began to get involved in looking at adverts and interrogating it and seeing whether it is going to cause some kind of conflict. Because even an agency, they could not pick it up. And that was for me sad because they didn't look at, neither the marketing team nor did the agency look at the social issues and things that in South Africa that we are deeply sensitive about. The All Media and Product Survey, AMPS, is the definitive study covering adults aged 16 and over throughout South Africa. It provides an ongoing, up-to-date picture of the economic well-being and development of South African adults and households. So that is basically, in a nutshell, your public relations and advertising. Okay. Guys, you're going to have to, and I just emphasize this because I don't want you to feel that I'm rushing through all of this, but you need to go and you need to look at your textbook and you need to conduct additional research in terms of the work that I'm covering. Because this, as I said, we're just doing it merely as a courtesy. It's not compulsory, but this is not to say that we're going to do this again in the future. This is just something I'm doing because we were asked very nicely to assist. Yeah. So when we look at public relations and selling, right? Just give me 1 second here. Okay. Public relations and selling. Now we have been through the lesson objectives, right? We've covered that in the roadmap. So it is rare for management to consider public relations as a major aid to sales activity. It unfortunately tends to be one of the last marketing tools to be brought into the sales strategy after an advertising program has been worked out. However, a new kind of teamwork is being created, which involves the public relations executive as fully as any member, right, of the marketing team. So, guys, I need to just emphasize when I keep telling, public relations is now, it has a seat at the boardroom table. You get executives, public relations executives, public affairs executives, corporate affairs or corporate communications executives. Now, the reason for the seniority and the reason why it's pitched on that level currently is due to the fact that companies have begun to see the importance that public relations plays, right, in any organization, right? So now with marketing and advertising, right, there is a new kind of teamwork that's being created, which now involves, like, for example, your public relations executive or practitioner as a member of the marketing team. So when the marketing team is sitting down at the beginning of the year and they have put their brand plans together, brand plans is sort of an idea of what they intend to do in the year in terms of campaigns, in terms of different kinds of activities within the year, and this is presented to like the marketing head or the marketing director or the marketing executive. Now, public relations practitioners will sit on that cross-functional team. They will sit in that team and also interrogate, ask questions, and once again, be an advisor to the team. So most people believe that public relations practitioner roles in marketing simply involves thinking out clever and unusual ways of getting media coverage. Now, that could not be further from the truth. We are not there just to think of clever ways to get media coverage. We are there to also look at things like what are the social issues in South Africa that we are missing and that is being overlooked in terms of this specific marketing campaign. Is this marketing campaign insensitive to certain individuals or race groups or age groups or whether it's sexist? It could be any of those things, right? So we play a very strategic role in terms of being an advisor to the team for the greater good of all, right? The whole purpose of us being involved at such early stages is to try and avoid any kind of issues, crisis, or risk that may potentially appear or rise due to a marketing campaign being launched into the industry. Public relations has a distinct function that has to do with presenting a company and its products between a variety of experts whose opinions are considered authoritative and relatively objective about the public, right? The different functions in the sales area, marketing, advertising, sales promotion, and public relations are interrelated and complement each other. So all of these areas, right, in sales, the marketing, advertising, the sales promotion, and public relations are all interrelated. They are linked in by thread, and one impacts the other in terms of what is being put out in the public domain through public relations, or whether it's a marketing, advertising campaign, or sales promotion. Now, we look at the consumer and the salesperson on the other side. So attention, right? The salesperson wants to get the attention or grasp the attention of the consumer, and that is to approach the consumer to establish the awareness. That is the salesperson's role. The interest. The salesperson will ask specific questions or the right questions that will then be able to determine the needs and wants of the consumer. Creating confidence within the consumer. So the salesperson has at least 60 seconds to convince the consumer to listen to them. Now, how many times have you had someone call you and say they are calling from this and this company, and have you got a few minutes of your time? And within 60 seconds, they are able to convince you whether you are interested in this product or not. Think about the times that you've been approached and how you felt and whether you were just not interested in whatever, and also the approach of the salesperson. Sometimes the salesperson doesn't even ask you, for example, do you have a few minutes, or can I have a few minutes of your time, please? They just go on reading from a script, right? Especially like the telemarketers. They read from a script, and it annoys a lot of people generally. In terms of selling the product, the salesperson highlights the features that have distinct customer benefits, or they highlight the benefits of the product to the consumer or customer, right? Creating the desire, right? The salesperson will review major benefits and additional benefits that this product has. Buying signals is when the salesperson watches for signals that the client is deciding to buy. Maybe when they are with the client picks up the product and tries to open it or tries to look at the features and, asks if they can switch it on and have a look at it, etc. So the salesperson will look out for specific signals that shows that the customer is interested in the product. And then lastly, action is asking the customer to buy the product, or it's called closing the sale or closing the deal or whatever you want to call it, but that's sales terminology, right? So those are in essence the selling, right? When a salesperson either approaches a customer, and they talk to them about a specific product or service. And this is the process that follows in terms of establishing whether the customer is interested or not, firstly, whether you have caught their attention, whether you've explained to them the benefits, right? And then in terms of the customer's indication through their actions, whether they want to buy the product or not. Consumer-orientated planning. Now, good consumer-orientated planning involves mentally placing oneself in the consumer's position and viewing the proposition as it would appear from his or her perspective. Now, there are 4 basic steps or rules that need to be applied in order for this to translate into something tangible, meaning that the customer will be interested and purchase the item, etc. The first is attention, second is interest, third is desire, and the fourth is action, right? So remember, when the salesperson is actually approaching a customer, when it's consumer orientated or customer orientated, the salesperson thinks not of just making the sale. They think of their perspective if they were the consumer, right? So it's to get the attention of the consumer, to get an indication whether the consumer is interested or not, their desire for the product, right? And then action is when they actually purchase it. You get in some instances where you have salespeople, and I have seen it firsthand, is when they're trying to sell someone a product and someone says, but I am currently unemployed, and due to the fact that I'm not working, I'm unable to purchase this. And you have, um, in some instances, it's very unpleasant where a salesperson, the only thing on their mind is closing the deal and getting the customer to purchase the item, right? That is not the case where it's consumer orientated. The salesperson is very cognizant of what the consumer wants. And if the consumer really doesn't want the item or the product, then they do not force the issue. Public relations and selling. So good public relations can assist the selling effort in the following ways. So we would then create information and awareness, right? So it's education and awareness about the product knowledge, right? Prospecting, approach, establishing needs, presentation, persuasion, dealing with objections, closing the sales, follow through. So remember in public relations what some of the things is like. For example, if you want to help the sales team and in terms of their selling efforts, so is to put together um, a good understanding of what the product benefits are. First and foremost, what makes this product so great is the benefits, and that it makes your life easier, right? So that can be then communicated through different platforms in terms of the benefits of that product. So you can continue and read on. I just want to check which chapter exactly. Okay, it is on chapter 7, right? Where you will read, and if you go through, you will see the attention, interest, desire, action on page 65, which we spoke about in the previous slide, where it's an orientation where it is taking into consideration what the customer actually wants. Public relations and selling, right? Now, there's on page 65, 66, and 67, you're going to read through the paragraphs on each one of these areas to get a better understanding, right? So here we've got them briefly, right? But you can read the full paragraphs on those pages that I've mentioned. So the public relations practitioner's role here is that they support the sales team. So one of the things we need to do is get a very good understanding, so an in-depth understanding, detailed and truthful knowledge of both the pros and cons of the service or product that is being offered. Knowing market trends is important, right? So if there is a specific trend where people are using, especially now in winter, specific product, right? So for example, Epimax, because their skin tends to be a bit dry in winter, right? So it's important to know that this is a good thing to promote, is that you can use it for dry skin, especially during seasons like winter, for example, right? Or when the climate is a lot drier, be able to provide detailed backup information and provide advice. Prospecting must involve a genuine interest in other people's needs. It is not good enough to know only the product. Knowledge on the prospective buyer or client is equally important. Information can come from many sources like financial reports, friends, consultants, um, reports, I think, yeah, reports, personal introductions. So in many cases you hear where a consultant calls you and maybe you have perhaps bought a product or a service. They ask you, you give me the names of 5 family or friends you who who you think would want to be interested in this specific product. The approach, the first few words that you speak is more important than the rest of what you say. Do not make assumptions that a customer is interested, rather assume they are not. So, for example, in the case that I used, is where the person says, "Thank you for your time, but unfortunately at this stage I am not employed, so I won't be able to purchase the product." Now, they have said that up front and they've made it clear, but you will have a sales rep trying to force that person to purchase a product. That is not on, okay? Establishing needs, phrase questions on the what, where, when, to what extent basis. The answers will then give a well-defined picture of the factors that may affect a decision. Presentation, work out a list of selling points, arrange them in logical order, select examples, statistics, or testimonials. Remember, you get testimonials from clients. You can place those testimonials on websites with their consent, obviously. Speak the client's language. Always remember that a salesperson who knows when to say nothing shows a fine command of the language, right? So persuasion is having established the consumer can afford the product or service, they should be persuaded as to the need or benefit by appealing to emotions, not the brain. So remember, we purchase on emotions, not specifically just thinking out of our brain. If a specific coffee makes you very happy when you drink it, you will go and purchase it because it makes you feel happy. If a certain style of dress that you like makes you feel confident, it's the emotion aspect to it. To make the consumer want what is being offered, first determine the buying motive, then follow three specific steps. Point out the consumer's lack of or want or need for the article. Tell the consumer how the article will satisfy the need or want. Paint a word picture of the satisfaction or gratification that will result from buying the article. So if the customer mentions, by the way, that they've got an important meeting that they've got to attend and they've got to dress up smartly, and this is a specific clothing line that you're selling, and then you would latch onto that specifically, that they need to an outfit that is going to look very smart and sophisticated for that specific meeting, and that is something that you are able to offer them in terms of the product line that you are showing them. Dealing with objections. So provide more information when a customer objects, where the customer just says, "No, I don't want it." So you can then try to understand why the customer is saying, "No, I don't want it," or "I don't think this is for me," right? Review objections and have an answer for each one. Answer at the right time, right? Closing the sale. Take note of what the consumer does. Note how the consumer looks. Pay attention to what the consumer says. Always follow through. So enthusiasm is key. Learn more about the product or service. Work harder by making more calls. Exposure to enthusiasm is contagious. Be fit and glowing with health. Act enthusiastically. Always act as if it's impossible to fail. Consumer services. Many customers and consumers, and you're also customers and consumers yourself, once you've bought something, you don't have the company or the salesperson ever calling you back again. Today's consumers have many choices of where they do business. It is the way in which they are treated that determines whether they will come back or not. Since most organizations strive to produce quality products, it makes good sense for them to work hard at providing quality service as well. So, public relations, right? What we can do is to assist our colleagues who are doing selling, right? The sales representatives, in terms of understanding the key concepts. They do undergo training, but maybe they are unable to communicate diplomatically and empathetically with the customer, you know, as opposed to like if someone says, look, I'm unemployed, I can't purchase this, and the salesperson really wants him to buy this, as opposed to saying, I'm really sorry that you are out of work, and I really do hope that you are able to find employment soon. There's different ways and approaches and different, remember, people will forget the things that that a person has done, but they will never forget how those individuals made them feel. Service excellence. So many of the top companies, in particular the retail field, reflect that this in their commitment in the following way. We are committed to taking exceptional care of our clients through unmatched service excellence in all our endeavors. Now, a service excellence statement is a statement that many companies offer to sell to clients. When I say sell to clients, is they want to make clients believe or customers believe that this is their motto or their thinking when it comes to service. Keys to service excellence. Clients or consumers have a right to excellent service because without consumers, a business will not exist and its legitimacy will be questioned. So the factors or dimensions of service include reliability, tangibles, responsiveness, confidence. So what research has shown us is that reliability is rated most important, followed by people factors, and then by tangibles. So you will see that there is more information in your textbook on page 67, right? Going through to 68, etc., for you to read up on. How can organizations achieve great consumer service? They need to be reliable. They need to be aware of what they promise. Remember the personal touch or the individual sort of customer service that is given to a customer. Be alert and responsive to consumer complaints. Build up consumer goodwill. So a consumer that has received good customer service, they are very happy with products. Just say it's a food chain, right? They will always return even if they are not convinced, they return willingly. So that is how you build consumer goodwill, is that customers become loyal to the organization. Never forget that consumers are paramount or they are important. Show your appreciation. Now, there are times where if you're a customer of a certain organization, on your birthday, you will get maybe a 100 Rand voucher to spend in store or something like that, right? So it's showing appreciation and also showing the fact that, hey, we remembered it's your birthday, even though it's in a database somewhere. Do small favors, right? If a customer comes in and they need something wrapped and there is no wrapping paper, the person helping them goes out of their way to ensure that they are able to get the gift wrapped for the customer. Sell your organization, keep your cool, and be a good example. So you are going to read up on pages, well, actually the whole of chapter 6, not 6, 7, for this presentation is relevant. So you are going to read it, and there's quite a lot of detail. There's even a case study on page 70 on the Consumer Service Charter, which you can go and read up on. So in conclusion, selling is regarded as helping people to see what they need and persuading them to get it, right? Only persuasion by enlightenment is permanently effective because it is geared to the satisfaction of the buyer. Excellent consumer service, therefore, is a prerequisite to enable successful selling on an ongoing basis. Public relations has now become an integral part of selling process, and the personal qualities of success for both public relation practitioners and salespeople are identical. So you need to look at the Consumer Protection Act, which is in the roadmap. There is a link, right? And you need to do your own research and make sure that you're familiar with the act. Because remember, if you buy an item, right, and you go to the store or the organization and there's something wrong with it, which is not their fault, and the store refuses to replace or take some action to rectify the situation, a customer or a consumer can approach the Consumer Protection Act, right? The and they can actually, not the act, they can't approach the act, but they can actually sue or take civil action against the organization in line with the Consumer Protection Act, right? So there is a reflective task that it's a student activity, right? You can do it in groups of 2. It's on page 75, which I did mention to you. 73. No, not 73. Page 70, right? Now, you need to go and have a look. I just want to check if it's the right one. So there is an exercise. Go and have a look, right? I can't actually see it now. Yeah, I can't see it now, but it is there. So it is on the Batho-Pele experiences understood and widely practiced in South Africa. So are the Batho-Pele experiences understood and widely practiced in South Africa? Select a government department and tell us what has been your experience in the government sector in the area of consumer service. What do you feel are the issues that the government sector needs to address? If you want to do the exercise, you can please do it and mail it to me. It is for your benefit, not for mine. So that is essentially the end of week 3 catch up. So we have done public relations 2 week 1 catch up, public relations 2 week 2 catch up, and public relations 2 week 3 catch up. I hope that helps in resolving the gaps for many students who have registered late and who have not had access to the classes. And however, there is no excuse. You have access to the modules, the roadmaps, and that can give you guidelines in terms of catching up on material that you've missed. So I am going to end the lecture now, and I will then catch up with everyone next week in class or online. We're going to have online classes for next week, and the week after it will be face-to-face. So thanks everyone, and I hope these recordings have definitely helped.